There is a silent force that moves the world. It does not shout, it does not demand, it seeks no applause. It is the soul of work, that inner flame that ignites the heart of one who gives their best, not for ambition, but for principle. James Allen, the sage of self-discipline and constructive thought, reveals to us in this work a forgotten truth. To work is not merely to do, it is to rise. Within every task, no matter how simple, lies the potential for greatness. In every act done with integrity, there echoes a trace of eternity. Here we do not speak of work as punishment or effort as burden, but as the sacred path of inner transformation. Because when effort is just, the soul blooms. When we give without complaint, when we serve with purpose, work ceases to be obligation and becomes a prayer in motion. This text is not merely a reading, it is a call to reclaim the deeper meaning of what we do, to restore dignity to everyday labor, and to remember that in the heart of true effort, the Spirit's destiny is forged. Prepare to rediscover the nobility of the invisible, the majesty of the constant, and the quiet power of living with purpose. Dignified labor carried out with a sober mind and a serene heart is one of the purest tributes the human soul can offer to the Most High. In a world agitated by the rush to achieve quick ends, to accumulate fleeting goods, and to pursue honors that wither with time, the spirit that humbly devotes itself to its daily work, no matter how modest, stands closer to the throne of wisdom than the most eloquent speaker or the most celebrated conqueror. This book was born from silence, from patient observation, from continuous effort on the path of righteousness. It was not written in haste, nor with the intent to flatter the powerful, but as a slow meditation on that forgotten art, the art of working with the soul. In these times of growing industry and constant noise, modern man risks confusing activity with progress, fatigue with merit, and gold with grace. I have known men with calloused hands and simple clothes whose lives were unwritten songs. In their repeated tasks they found not routine, but rhythm, not imprisonment, but order, not servitude, but freedom. Their work was their altar, and each act was an invisible offering. They did not seek applause or recognition. They delighted in the perfection of duty well fulfilled. The purpose of these pages is not to teach techniques or methods, but to light a lamp in the conscience. For when the mind is illumined, the craft is transformed. The sweeper's broom, the blacksmith's hammer, the scribe's pen, the weaver's loom, all are ennobled when the worker sees his labor as an extension of his soul, as a bridge between the visible and the eternal. Much has been said about thought as a creative force, but little has been meditated on work as the manifestation of thought. Just as the tree bears fruit according to its root, work reveals the temper of the spirit, and where elevated thought dwells, lowly deeds cannot exist. Therefore, whoever purifies their mind also elevates the most ordinary act to the level of sacred expression. This, then, is a call, not to change occupation, but to change consciousness. Not to seek another trade, but to discover the soul of the one already possessed. Not to flee from work, but to enter its mystery. Let the reader who finds these lines not rush to judge them by their simplicity, for just as gold often lies within the roughest rock, so too does wisdom hide within the most humble gestures. And now, with reverence for the spirit of work, which is also the Spirit of God in action, I present this humble offering to the working soul of the world. We've noticed that over 80% of those who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and giving the video a like. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. Work is the law of the soul. All life flourishes in proportion to its alignment with purpose. In the serene contemplation of the laws that govern the cosmos, it becomes clear that everything that lives, grows, or breathes does so by fulfilling a silent and continuous effort. The heavens move by the force of invisible laws. The seas rise and fall under the same obedience. Even the lily that blooms in the field does not do so without a secret discipline imposed by life itself. Such is the law of work, which, far from being a burden, is truly the highest expression of spiritual activity in matter. Man, as the most conscious creature among earthly beings, does not escape this law but is called to fulfill it with more depth and responsibility than others. While the beast tills the earth by instinct and the flower opens by natural command, man can choose the type of effort he gives to the world, and thus the kind of soul he cultivates. For work is not only a need of the body, but a need of the spirit. No soul grows without dedication to purpose, and no purpose manifests without the constant exercise of will. In our time, when many begin to abandon old superstitions and seek a nobler meaning of existence, it is of utmost importance to understand the sacred place that work holds in the life of the soul. I do not speak here of work understood as punishment, nor effort born of despair or imposed slavery. I speak of work as a conscious expression of order, will, service, and inner development. For when man works with awareness, his labor ceases to be a forced task and becomes an offering. Many in their ignorance cry out for rest before having worked, for fruit before having sown, for freedom before having learned obedience. But the law cannot be cheated in the soul as it cannot on earth. Only that which is sown and carefully tended grows. Persistent idleness leads to emptiness, anxiety, and bitterness, while well-done work strengthens character and purifies thought. He who works in order and peace cultivates not only the outer world, but his own being, and life does not demand extraordinary results nor unreachable feats from man, but faithfulness to the present duty. The vast majority of those who inhabit this world are not called to govern nations or write immortal treatises, but all without exception have been placed where a task awaits them. And to the extent that this task is fulfilled with love, diligence, and humility, the soul ascends, because it is not the size of the work that ennobles a man but the purity with which he performs it. The baker who kneads with gratitude, the mother who cares with tenderness, the gardener who prunes with patience, the scribe who repeats lines without error, all of them, when acting with awareness and serenity, are fulfilling the divine purpose entrusted to them. Their days, though simple, are full of light. Their work is silent prayer. Their effort is a form of meditation. And without knowing it, their soul grows strong like a tree that silently grows, not boastfully but firmly. From my experience among men of all kinds, I have observed that those who train themselves nobly in their daily labor possess an inner peace that cannot be feigned, while those who live seeking leisure, comfort, or easy gain suffer from constant restlessness and dissatisfaction that neither money nor pleasure can appease. The soul cannot flourish where there is no just effort, for it was made to create, to order, to serve, and to progress. Work is not a condition imposed only by economic necessity, but by the very structure of the human soul. Just as muscles atrophy without exercise, so too does the spirit wither without righteous activity. Even those who have reached a position where they could live without working often experience a void they cannot explain until they find again a purpose that calls them to effort. This happens because the soul needs to work as the flower needs the sun, and when it does not, it languishes. But not all effort is noble. There are those who work with resentment, with excessive ambition, with hatred of duty, with desire for profit without service. That kind of work, though it may yield material results, impoverishes the soul. True work, the work that elevates, purifies, and brings peace, is that which is done with a clear conscience, voluntary dedication, and love. In it, there is no despair, pride, or greed. There is only presence, rhythm, and inner silence. And where there is silence, the voice of the eternal begins to be heard. No task is too humble to become a temple, nor labor so mechanical that it cannot awaken intelligence when done with attention. The constant repetition of a gesture can either empty the soul or fill it with wisdom, depending on the spirit with which it is performed. The sweeper who contemplates while sweeping, the farmer who prays while sowing, the laborer who sings in his heart while driving the iron, all of them, if done with purity of intention, are building the invisible edifice of a strong soul. And this is what many have forgotten. Work is the invisible education of the spirit, the strict discipline that forms character, the forge where will is tempered. He who works with patience learns to wait. He who works with care learns to be orderly. He who works with love learns to see beauty where others see only fatigue. Therefore, work produces not only material goods, but invisible goods that accompany the soul beyond the grave. When a man puts his heart into his work, the entire universe seems to align with his aim, not because fortune comes to him by magic, but because his centered and peaceful mind becomes a command of opportunity, clarity, and purpose. He no longer seeks outside what he must find within, and upon finding within himself the serenity of one who fulfills his duty, a light begins to shine that nothing can extinguish. It is the light of the soul in action. No one can take from a man the merit of his well-done work. Neither the ingratitude of the world, nor the forgetfulness of others, nor apparent injustice can stain the purity of righteous effort. For that effort leaves an eternal mark on character, and character in turn shapes destiny. In conclusion, every life that aspires to flourish must train its purpose with love. It is not about wishing for great things, but about doing small things with great inner greatness. Wherever you are, fulfill your work as if you alone were responsible for the balance of the world. For in truth, you are, at least for your own. And when your soul is aligned with the work given to you, you will know the silent joy of the righteous, the peace that does not depend on the external, the dignity that cannot be bought, and the strength that does not fade. Just as the river does not stop until it reaches the sea, the soul does not rest until it fulfills its duty. And that duty, humble or grand, rough or subtle, is always one more step on the ladder that leads from man to wise, from wise to just, and from just to eternal. Chapter 2. The Craft as a Path to Peace. As the one who serves in small things prepares for the eternal. In this transient world, where men chase after achievements that dissolve like mist at dawn, few discover that true peace, the peace undisturbed neither by the winds of misfortune nor by the whispers of praise, is found not in the applause of the crowds, but in the silent service to small things. History is full of illustrious names, conquerors and sages, poets and prophets. But beyond the splendor of grand deeds, invisible to the eyes of the world, stand the humble souls who have made daily duty a path to the eternal. These souls do not seek recognition, nor do they strive to leave their mark in marble or parchment. Their work is written in secrecy, in daily fidelity, in constant dedication to the craft life has entrusted to them. And in that dedication, they discover a secret denied to many, the peace of a serene soul. The restless mind, always craving immediate greatness, despises the small. It seeks elevation by a leap, not by ascent. But in the divine order, there are no shortcuts. Every step is necessary. Every task holds a lesson. Every moment is preparation. Whoever avoids simple work is not yet mature for the heights, and whoever serves joyfully in humility, without complaint or seeking advancement, already stands at the threshold of the eternal. Great spirits emerge in constancy, in obedience to the present moment. The one who cleans a doorstep with reverence and care is already purifying his own heart. The one who tends a child with silent tenderness participates in the care of the world. The one who arranges a workshop as if it were a temple is ordering his own thoughts. And so, without noise, clamors, or urgency, peace descends like a blessing upon those who honor the small. Because true peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of inner harmony. And that harmony is cultivated through discipline, joyful acceptance of duty, renunciation of pride. Many believe peace comes when the work is done, when success is achieved, when everything falls into place, but it is the opposite. Peace comes when the soul orders itself, and from that order works, serves, and perseveres without agitation. He who complains about his work and longs to change it for a more comfortable or prestigious one has not yet understood that value lies not in the position, but in the consciousness with which it is performed. A king may be at war with his soul, and a farmer may sleep peacefully under the stars. For the former may struggle amid ambitions, while the latter gives himself to the furrow with simplicity, knowing that every seed planted with love blooms beyond time. The daily craft, repeated over and over without applause or visible reward, can be a stumbling block for the impatient or a cornerstone for the wise, because in that repetition there is no punishment, but possibility. Possibility of perfection, clarity, concentration, purification. And if the mind does not scatter, if the heart is not poisoned by complaint, then the soul rises even while the hands dig into the earth. Many desire to rise but do not want to serve. They want light without discipline, wisdom without renunciation, fruit without sowing. But all true elevation is born of service. Not noisy service, full of spectacle, but silent, attentive service, invisible to the world but visible to the inner eye. For only he who has been faithful in little can receive much without faltering. And here is an eternal principle. He who despises his present task because it seems unworthy also despises the soul given to him, because there is no indignity in serving with love. Indignity lies only in evasion, laziness, arrogance that believes it deserves more without having offered more. He who sweeps a street with a noble spirit is already closer to wisdom than the one who dictates laws with a proud heart. Often men ask why they do not find peace. The answer is simple: because they have not yet learned to joyfully surrender to what lies before them. Their minds dwell in desire, not in act, in comparison, not in action, in tomorrow, not in now. And peace is found only in the now, in conscious presence, in humble service that expects nothing but gives everything. I have seen men transform their spirit through simple work. The shoemaker who repairs each sole as if mending a soul. The seamstress who joins fabrics as if uniting hearts. The farmer who plants as if in prayer. None were famous, none acclaimed, but their inner light shone with a brilliance not learned in books nor bought with coins. That light is the reflection of the peace granted by work done with rectitude. And this is one of the greatest truths I have understood. He who serves cleanly in small things is already preparing for the eternal, because in the humility of present service, the soul is shaped to endure future greatness without being destroyed by pride. Just as the drop of water descending a rock shapes the stone over time, so the soul, serving each day with love, shapes its destiny. The universe watches and life responds not to cries or demands, but to the silent vibration of the soul that has understood it, is not here to be served, but to serve. And in that serving it finds rest, because he who has made his work a form of love no longer seeks peace outside. He carries it within. Therefore, do not despise your craft, no matter how simple it seems. Do not measure it by worldly success, nor compare it to another's task. Measure it with your heart. If you can do it with cleanliness, order, and joy, then you are already walking the path of peace, and that peace, independent of the world's noise or others' approval, will be your shield against discouragement, your lamp in the night, your silent inheritance. For the soul that has learned to serve in small things has already been touched by the eternal. Chapter 3. The Purity of Doing. The spirit with which one works is worth more than the work itself. It is not the visible act, nor the tool used, nor the chosen craft that sanctifies a man's work, but the invisible spirit with which he carries it out. In the realm of the soul, where things are not measured by their size but by their vibration, the slightest gesture can resonate in eternity if done with purity of intention. I have known men who build palaces without love, and others who mend shoes with devotion. And I have learned that there is greater greatness in the latter if their heart burns with righteousness, than in the former if their work is born from selfishness or greed. For every action is a spiritual seed and, as such, will bear fruit according to its nature. If it was sown in nobility, it will bring peace. If in pride, it will bring unrest, no matter how splendid its outward fruit appears. The purity of doing does not refer to technical perfection, but to moral integrity. A work can be flawless in the eyes of the world and yet be tainted by vanity or resentment. Another, clumsier in appearance, can emanate a serene light if done with sincerity, gratitude, and humility, because the universe, that faithful mirror of the human soul, responds not to external artifice, but to inner truth. In our time, results are often applauded regardless of the path taken. The shine of the work is valued more than the purity of spirit that gave birth to it. But all work without purity is empty, and all labor without consciousness becomes slavery. Only when the soul is present in the doing does action become a vehicle of transformation, for the doer as well as the world that receives it. The pure man in his work does not wonder if his task is observed or if it will be rewarded. He does not work for fame, nor to avoid criticism. He works to obey a higher principle than himself, a law that speaks from the depths and says, "Be faithful in little, and little will become much." That purity, far from being weakness or naivety, is silent strength. The soul that acts with right intention resists temptation, rejects empty praise, endures fatigue without complaint, and perseveres in duty like a river tirelessly seeking the sea. It needs no justifications or adornments. Its doing is its saying. Its task is its testimony. But how to attain such purity in a world full of noise, comparison, and external pressure? How to keep intention clean amid urgency, demands, and fatigue? The answer is simple and profound. By living in the awareness of the present, returning each act to the altar of the moment, as if it were the only one granted to us. When work is done with total presence, the mind does not wander, the heart does not embitter, and the soul is nourished. I have seen those who wash dishes as if officiating a rite, and those who build walls with indifference. What determines the charity of an action is not its outward form, but its inner root. Does it arise from the desire to serve or to be seen? Does it come from the joy of existing or the fear of loss? Is it done with attention or haste? Each of these questions reveals the depth or shallowness of the doing. And this leads us to an unbreakable truth. The spirit with which one works is worth more than the work itself. What the world sees is transient, but what the soul forges within itself while acting remains. 1 hour of labor done with purity can transform more than whole days done with disdain or vanity. And a sincere heart that puts love into every gesture rises silently toward the summit where true peace dwells. Pure doing does not compete, does not compare, does not envy. It is like the sun that shines without expecting reward, like the flower that opens without asking who looks. Its joy is in being what it is, fulfilling its nature, giving without demanding. And when a man works thus, not as a slave to obligation, but as a friend of his task, then his work becomes a reflection of the divine. Some will say this is idealism, that the world does not allow such heights, that there are bills to pay and bosses to please. And it is true that life imposes conditions, but even amid them, the choice of spirit with which one acts remains free. An elevated soul can find purity even in the strictest structures because true freedom is not external, but internal. The purity of doing is also a form of prayer, not a prayer that asks, nor one that recites, but one that acts. Every nail hammered with care, every word written with love, every instrument tuned delicately, every step taken with respect is a silent prayer that rises to heaven and leaves its echo on earth. When a man works with purity, the universe conspires to sustain him, not necessarily with wealth or recognition, but with clarity of purpose, inner serenity, and a profound sense of existence. And these are treasures higher than all the metals of the world. Therefore, if you wish your life to be an offering, begin by making every action an expression of your purest soul. Do not expect great feats. Do what lies before you with your whole being. The cleanliness with which you prepare a table may be holier than 1,000 speeches. The sweetness with which you greet may have more power than an order. Purity needs no stage. It suffices itself. Do not fear the smallness of your work if the spirit that moves it is pure. For in the secret balance of the universe, Every noble act, no matter how small, tips the scales toward the light. And he who acts with purity, even if the world ignores him, has already been recognized on high. So cleanse your doing, not with obsession for external perfection, but with inner faithfulness. Let everything you do bear the imprint of your sincerity, your gratitude, your wholeheartedness. And then, regardless of the craft, regardless of the place, you will know the silent bliss of the righteous, whose work is their joy, and whose effort is their peace. Chapter 4. Inner order reflected in the work. Where there is clarity in the soul, there is beauty in the action. In everything created by the hand of man, from grand cathedrals to the simplest fabric, something more than mere skill is revealed. It manifests the inner state of the one who executed it. For every external work is a faithful mirror of inner order, and the soul cannot hide behind the hammer, the pen, or the tool. It reveals itself in every line, in every stitch, in every stroke. I have walked through humble villages where the streets were swept with care, the doors painted with love, the small gardens ordered like temples. And I have also seen wealthy homes, filled with things, yet invaded by neglect, the noise of excess, the indifference of a disordered soul. It is not therefore about resources, but about presence and clarity. The soul that lives in order manifests its light in the simplest things. The one that lives in confusion drags it into even the noblest act. Inner order is not rigidity or coldness, but a deep harmony between thought, intention, and action. It is the natural consequence of a mind cleared of entanglements, unguided passions, and destructive ambitions. The clear soul does not need to impose itself, its very action speaks. Just as transparent water reflects the sky without distortion, so too does the soul in order project beauty in its doing. And here is an eternal principle. Beauty arises from order, not from adornment, not from luxury, not from unnecessary opulence, but from the correspondence between what one is and what one expresses. A carefully written letter is beautiful. A field sown with love is beautiful. A table served with gratitude is beautiful, because behind each of these actions is a consciousness that supports it. Disorder, on the other hand, confuses, distracts, and unbalances. It is a symptom of a mind that has yet to find its center. The modern world celebrates speed but forgets direction. It praises productivity but neglects the precision of the soul. Many do much, but do so without soul. And the result is a proliferation of hollow acts, automatic gestures, works without spirit. The order of the soul is not measured by quantity, but by the charity of the being impressed on each thing. When a man orders his interior, everything in his life begins to acquire form, rhythm, and coherence. Words become just, acts timely, decisions firm. There is no longer dissonance between what he thinks and what he does, between what he says and what he keeps silent. His life, even without grand gestures, begins to be a silent music that others recognize and respect, even if they cannot explain it. Because the soul in order radiates peace, and peace is irresistible. This order is not imposed from outside, it is born from within. It is not the fruit of rules, but of understanding. The clear mind does not need many commandments, because in lucidity it already finds its law. And this law is simple. Do what is right in the right way at the right time. Whoever follows this principle, no matter how humble their work, turns each day into a lesson in balance, and their mere presence teaches more than my sermons. Some believe that order is a matter of habit or external education, but that is only appearance. True order is an internal vibration that translates into precision, cleanliness, harmony. It is the consequence of having put each thought in its place, having named each emotion, having consciously chosen each step, and whoever acts thus does so with beauty. I have entered workshops where the simple act of putting tools away after use becomes a gesture of reverence. I have seen a scribe clean his pen before beginning, a cook sharpen his knife in silence, a weaver align threads as if preparing an altar. These gestures are not trivial. They are the language of an ordered soul that lets nothing escape its attention because it has understood that every act is a prayer. Disorder is nothing more than the outward expression of the soul's neglect. And just as dust accumulates in a neglected house, doubts, fears, and passions accumulate in an undisciplined mind. A man who wants to transform his life must begin by putting in order what is already in his hands: his room, his words, his habits, his schedule, not out of obsession, but out of love for harmony, which reflects the divine. Because where there is beauty, there is a greater presence. Beauty is not whim, it is a sign. The serene face, the well-made stroke, the complete work, the measured gesture, all are signs that the spirit has taken the helm. The soul aligned with beauty does not seek the flashy, but the true. And the true is always simple, clear, exact. Often the act of ordering is undervalued as a soulless task, but ordering the outer world is a symbolic act of ordering the inner universe. Whoever cleans their desk prepares to think better. Whoever makes their bed prepares to rest in peace. Whoever organizes their day prepares their destiny. This is not superstition, it is correspondence. What is done outside reflects what is inside. What is built inside projects outward. Therefore, if you desire to live in beauty, do not seek it as decoration. First, seek clarity of soul, and it will take care of beautifying your action. Where there is lucidity, confusion cannot exist. Where there is love for order, vulgarity cannot reside. Where there is respect for what is done, the task becomes art, and life an offering. Thus, the one who orders their interior works better, serves better, loves better, and without seeking it, begins to inspire others, not by what they say, but by what they emanate. Their environment transforms, their relationships flourish, their words carry weight, because within them there is coherence that a world tired of masks recognizes as true light. In summary, where there is clarity in the soul, there is beauty in action. The one who seeks this clarity need not seek greatness, for greatness will come as a gift. Everything they touch will be filled with meaning. Their work, no matter how modest, will become a path. Their doing, no matter how routine, will become revelation. And their life, without grand gestures, will be a living testimony that inner order is the highest form of art. Chapter 5. The Silent Devotion of the Noble Worker. He who works with love builds invisible temples. There is a form of holiness that is not found in words, nor in books, nor in visible temples, but in the silent heart of the man who works with love. His sanctuary is not made of stone or gold, but of daily effort. His prayer is not spoken, but made with his hands, eyes, feet, and will. This man wears no habit and utters no formulas, yet every one of his acts, every detail carried out with care, every gesture repeated tirelessly, is a silent devotion seen only by the eyes of the soul. The noble worker needs no one to call him wise, just, or master. He seeks no exaltation nor demands recognition. He does not present himself as an example or proclaim himself enlightened. And yet his very presence is a teaching. The way he walks toward his task, the attention with which he cleans his tools, the way he breathes before beginning, all in him conveys an intimate reverence for work as a form of communion with the divine. Often spirituality is thought to be a matter of retreat, silence, or isolated contemplation. But there is an active spirituality hidden among the gears of the world, distinguished not by its location, but by the intensity of the soul carrying it out. And so, amidst the noise of the city, among tilled fields, in workshops, kitchens, factories, live men and women who turn their work into an invisible altar. They do not flaunt their dedication, nor see their duty as sacrifice. They know that working with love is not renouncing the voice, but entering into it. For them, repetition is not routine, it is rhythm. Effort is not punishment, it is transformation. Fatigue is no cause for complaint, but proof that the body has been an instrument of something greater. They serve not a boss or a company, but a silent truth that vibrates beyond form. And in this wordless devotion, the noble worker builds temples, not of marble or brick, but temples where dwells the beauty of a disciplined spirit, a generous heart, a clear mind. Every nail hammered, every loaf baked, every garment sewn is a stone in an invisible construction that neither time nor forgetfulness can tear down. For what is done with pure love is inscribed in the eternal plans of life. This worker does not ask if his task is small or great, if it will be seen or not, if it will bear immediate fruit. His only concern is to do it well, to do it with a clean soul, and by doing so unknowingly he participates in the universal order. His energy is not lost, it transforms. His act does not dissolve, it rises. His day is not just another day. It is part of an invisible fabric where every thread matters. Many men long to leave a mark on the world. The noble worker, instead, wishes that his work leaves a mark on his soul. He does not aspire to fame, but to coherence. And he knows that each day, by giving his best in what he does, his being is polished, his character strengthened, his vision clarified. For every work done with devotion is also a school of the Spirit. I have seen these men. The press does not recognize them, history does not celebrate them, but in their homes there is order, on their faces peace, in their words substance. They do not shout, do not boast, do not demand. But when one watches them at work, one feels called to live more nobly. They are like fire that warms without burning, like a river that flows without noise, like roots that sustain without being seen. And this silent devotion does not arise from doctrine or ideology. It springs from the deep understanding that all work can be sacred if done with purity. It matters not if it is cutting wood or composing a symphony. What gives value to the act is not its form, but its depth. When the soul is present, everything becomes luminous. The noble worker does not separate life into compartments. He has no moment for the spiritual and another for the worldly. For him, all life is an act of the soul. Upon rising, he gives thanks. Before beginning, he aligns with his task. When finishing, he delivers what he has done as one who closes a circle. His day has not only been productive, above all, it has been meaningful. And in difficult moments, when fatigue tightens or recognition is scarce, this man does not break because he does not work to be seen but to be coherent. He does not feed on applause but on inner fulfillment. He knows that each day is an opportunity to deepen within himself, to strengthen his spirit, to serve the world quietly. In this way, his work becomes a form of prayer, not the prayer that begs, but the one that offers, the one that asks for nothing but gives everything, the one that needs no words because its language is the right act, done with love, expecting nothing in return. And in this living prayer, the noble worker finds what many seek without finding meaning. He who works with love not only transforms what he touches, he transforms himself. Each day is a step toward a higher version of his being. And though the world may not see it, though his hands may crack, though his days pass without outward glory, deep in the soul a temple is built where dwells a peace that does not depend on the world. Thus, in this noisy and confusing world, the noble worker walks silently. He does not preach with words, but his whole life is a teaching. And though his footsteps leave no marks on the earth, they leave marks on the spirit of those around him, for the devoted soul never goes unnoticed by the attentive soul. And when at last he closes his eyes, his invisible but real work will remain engraved where it matters, in the eternal fabric of the universe. Because he who works with love has not only fulfilled a task, he has built an invisible temple at whose center burns, silently and alive, the flame of the awakened spirit. Chapter 6. Against impatience and vanity. The true worker neither rushes nor exalts himself. Nothing disrupts the substance of the soul as much as impatience and vanity. They are like restless winds that stir the surface of a lake, preventing the stars from reflecting upon it. In a time when men fervently surrender to noise, speed, and the fleeting sparkle of the moment, these two shadows of character have been mistaken for virtues. Hurry is called dynamism, and ostentation is called courage. Yet neither has roots in truth. Impatience is the child of disorderly desire, vanity the offspring of poorly sown pride. Both are born from the ego, that false center that seeks immediate pleasure and others' approval without having conquered mastery over oneself. He who works with impatience corrupts his work. He who works with vanity empties it of spirit. The true worker, the one who acts in communion with the soul, neither rushes nor exalts himself. He works with the calm of one who trusts the law and with the humility of one who does not need to be seen to know his work has value. The universe does not rush. The seed does not grow in a day. The sun does not rise in haste. Everything in nature follows its course with precision and patience. And if a man wishes to act in harmony with that higher order, he must learn to trust the rhythm of things. Hastened fruit is often unripe. Impatient action is often misdirected. What is solid is built over time. Wisdom is distilled in stillness. The impatient man tires before he begins. He expects everything immediately and therefore suffers everything. He does not understand that work, to be noble, requires perseverance. He desires results before having emptied himself of his mistakes. He wants harvest without sowing, light without discipline, applause without silence. And so, stumbling against the natural resistance of things, he falls into frustration, complaint, and doubt. But he who works from patience, with a tempered heart and steady step, acts without anxiety, knowing that every faithful work finds its time to bloom. He does not despair when the fruits delay, nor does he pride himself when they come. He knows they do not belong to him. They are only a reflection of his obedience to a higher order. He measures his worth not by results, but by the purity with which he has worked. Vanity, on the other hand, disguises itself as merit, but is its shadow. It makes a man work not for the love of what he does, but for the desire to be admired. His work is not an offering, but a spectacle, and by seeking external recognition he loses connection with his inner spirit. The vain man exalts himself for the little he has done, forgetting that most of the true task occurs invisibly. I have observed many who, after a small achievement, proclaim themselves masters, who, after fleeting success, adopt the posture of the wise. But the true wise man does not raise his voice. His greatness hides like a root beneath the earth. His satisfaction depends not on others' eyes, but on the serenity born of a duty fulfilled. The vain seek the light for themselves. The righteous reflect it without intention. Impatience and vanity are also thieves of the voice, for they prevent the soul from enjoying the process. The impatient man does not live in the present moment, always running toward a future that has not yet come. The vain man does not dwell in his own consciousness, always occupied imagining how others will see him. Both flee from themselves, both are lost in mirages. The noble worker, however, remains in himself. He neither rushes nor stops. He does not seek to surpass another, but to surpass himself. He knows every work has its time, every fruit its season. Therefore he moves like a river, constant but without haste, deep but without noise. And it is in this simple and rare attitude that true strength resides. Modern society, anxious to achieve what it calls success, has confused movement with progress. But one can run in circles without advancing. True progress is internal, and all internal progress requires patience, humility, and silence. Character is forged in repetition without complaint, in waiting without despair, in doing without ostentation. Let us always remember that the beauty of the universe lies not in its speed, but in its precision. The stars do not rush, yet they fulfill their course. So too does the soul that works without haste, without boastfulness, without comparison, carve in itself an imperishable work. There is no greater victory than to overcome the need for recognition. There is no greater freedom than to be freed from haste. The worker who has conquered these two invisible enemies, impatience and vanity, becomes a silent instrument of eternal order. And even if his work is ignored by men, the entire universe recognizes it. Therefore, if you desire your work to be noble, work with serene rhythm, with constant dedication, with inviolable humility. Do not look at how much you have done or how much remains to be done. Look only at the purity with which you do it, for work done without haste and pride is the work that endures. And when you finally look back and contemplate what your hands have built, what your character has sustained, what your soul has expressed, you will find something more valuable than external achievements. You will find that you yourself have been transformed. Chapter 7. Work as a means of self-discipline, forging character through conscious repetition. Character, that invisible architecture that supports a man's entire life, is not built in a day nor by chance. It is the fruit of a disciplined will, of a consciousness that has learned to shape itself with the persistence of one who carves stone, not with violent blows, but with precise, repeated, and patient strikes. Among all the means the soul has to forge its character, daily work is the most powerful, if lived with awakened attention and conscious repetition. In these times, where everything is sought immediately and speed is celebrated more than depth, many fall into the error of despising repetition. They believe that what is repeated is boring, useless, or inferior, but they ignore that repetition, when done with full presence, is the forge where the soul is tempered. Just as a musician repeats scales until their fingers become a direct expression of the spirit, so too does the soul, by consciously repeating its acts, turn work into a path of perfection. There is no true discipline without repetition, and no transformative repetition without presence. The worker who repeats a task mechanically does not grow, but the one who performs it with an awake soul, an attentive mind, and a willing heart transforms the simplest act into an exercise of inner mastery, because it is not the act itself that elevates, but the state of consciousness with which it is executed. Work is the stage where a man confronts his shadows, laziness, impatience, pride, complaint. It is also the ground where he can cultivate virtues, diligence, patience, humility, gratitude. But this transformation does not happen by chance. It occurs when a man turns his daily labor into a moral and spiritual training ground, when he stops doing things out of obligation and begins to do them as a deliberate act of growth. Self-discipline is not repression, it is not rigidity nor the negation of joy. At its deepest root, it is the ability to remain faithful to a higher purpose, even when the will wavers or circumstances change. It is the nobility of saying to oneself, I will do what I must, not because of external imposition, but out of inner loyalty. And it is in daily work that this loyalty is tested again and again. I have known men who, without ever having read treatises on philosophy or ethics, possessed unshakable serenity. What was their secret? Conscious repetition. Over the years, they had polished their character on the silent wheel of their craft. Each day was an opportunity to perfect the gesture, to align intention, to tame the ego. They did not need to speak of virtues, they embodied them, because the one who repeats their work consciously also repeats themselves. They find themselves, recognize themselves, polish themselves, and in that silent act, they build an inner strength that neither breaks before error nor exalts at success. They become a rock amidst the waves. Self-discipline forged in work has another hidden quality. It educates desire. Undisciplined desire jumps from one thing to another. It tires quickly and demands variety. But the soul that has learned to remain at its task, even when enthusiasm wanes, discovers a deeper joy than pleasure, the joy of self-mastery. And that joy does not depend on what is done, but on who does it and how it is done. Just as the body grows stronger by repeating the correct movement, character grows stronger by repeating the right act. Each action performed with attention and purpose leaves a mark on the soul, and over time those marks form firm paths where before there were uncertain roads. The man becomes clearer, more sober, more steady. His word carries weight. His presence commands. His life harmonizes. There is no need to wait for grand occasions to practice self-discipline. Daily life is full of opportunities in how one rises in the morning, in how one arranges the workplace, in how one responds to interruption, in the care taken to finish a task. Everything can be a training ground if lived consciously. And when self-discipline becomes habit, the soul enters a new dimension of freedom. It is no longer dragged by impulses, no longer needs external motivation. It is self-sufficient. It has found in work the path to inner sovereignty. But this does not happen without resistance. The path of discipline is arduous at first. The body protests, the mind wanders, the ego demands gratification. It is like learning to write with the opposite hand, awkward, slow, frustrating. Yet with perseverance and devotion, the day comes when the new movement becomes natural, and the soul discovers it has conquered another part of itself. Conscious repetition does not dull, it awakens. Because each repetition is an opportunity to see the same thing with new eyes, to deepen what is known, to discover layers of meaning previously ignored. The simple act, repeated 1,000 times with a present soul, becomes mastery. So if you long to strengthen your character, do not wait for a perfect moment or an ideal task. Begin with what you have. Do it with your whole soul. Repeat consciously. Repeat with love. Repeat with purpose, and with each repetition the spirit within you will become clearer, firmer, more luminous. There is no greater work than forging oneself, and no more constant an anvil than daily work. He who understands this stops fleeing effort and begins to love his task like a sculptor loves his hammer, knowing that with each strike the soul is freed from roughness and the essential form emerges. And so, without need for rewards or witnesses, the conscious worker sculpts his being, not for the applause of the world, but for the peace of the soul. And that peace, which no noise can disturb, is the secret crown of every just effort. Chapter 8. The hidden joy in humble tasks. The soul that serves in the simple is worthy of the eternal throne. We live in an age where many seek greatness, but few understand that true greatness hides beneath modest garments. In their eagerness to reach heights, man forgets that the heavens are best reflected in still waters, and that the soul to fly must first root deeply in simplicity. It is in humble, repeated, and quiet tasks where the most sublime mysteries of existence are revealed. There, in the small things, dwells a joy that does not depend on the world. Most overlook these tasks because they do not shine, because they bring no outward glory, because they are not sung by the voices of history. But the wise soul recognizes them as closed doors to peace and inner understanding. Those who serve in small things with a pure heart, constant dedication, and without complaint are worthy of the eternal throne, even if they never set foot in a palace or wear a crown. What is a humble task in essence? It is one the world does not celebrate. Sweeping a floor, washing a dish, folding a garment, writing in silence, fixing a door, preparing a meal. These are simple, necessary, almost invisible gestures, and yet within them lies the alchemy of the soul. Because each of these acts, when performed with love, full attention, and without selfish desire, becomes a divine spark. The common man does them out of habit, the impatient avoids them, the proud despises them, but the awakened man honors them. He knows that the act which does not flatter the ego can enrich the spirit. He understands that it is not what is done, but how it is done and who does it. And so his life becomes a symphony of conscious simplicity. His hands serve, but his soul reigns. There is a deep sweetness in the one who at dawn prepares the place where others will live, a silent nobility in the one who lights the fire before others awake, a holiness in the one who folds a shirt as if smoothing the universe. These tasks, when done with a loving spirit, transform the invisible world of the soul, and whoever transforms their soul transforms everything they touch. I have seen more wisdom in an old woman tenderly watering her plants than in many who boast of knowledge. Because her gesture is not mechanical, it is conscious. It is an offering, an unwritten poetry, not seeking to be seen, but her gesture orders, beautifies, harmonizes. And that order, that beauty, that harmony are signs that the eternal dwells in the simple. The joy arising from these humble tasks is not euphoria. It is serene peace, silent joy, the deep certainty of being in the right place, doing the right thing, with the right attitude. The soul that serves thus does not wear out, it renews. It does not get lost, it finds itself, because surrendering to the simple frees it from pride and demand. And when the soul frees itself from the desire to stand out, to be superior, to shine, it begins to see the splendor in the everyday, the light in the washed cup, the order in the swept corner, the purity in the hung clothes. Everything reveals its closed form, and the world, far from being a battleground, becomes a temple where everything has meaning. True spirituality is not measured by what is preached, but by what is done without witnesses. There is no higher action than that performed with perfect humility. There is no soul more elevated than one who, able to seek recognition, chooses silence and service. Those who serve thus are like a hidden lamp. They do not cry out for attention, yet they illuminate everything around them. The great masters of all time taught not through speeches, but through simple acts. They washed feet, sewed their own clothes, shared bread, and in these modest human gestures, they revealed the majesty of the eternal embodied in the simple. They knew that serving in small things is not lowering oneself, but elevating the world with the light of awakened consciousness. Every humble task is an opportunity, a door to inner silence, an exercise of presence, a place where the mind can quiet down, the ego dissolve, and the soul blossom. But this is only possible if it is lived as a sacred act, as meditation in motion, if done without haste, resistance, or disdain. And it is then, only then, that hidden joy appears. A joy that needs no external stimulus, a joy that springs from the soul itself like water from a secret spring, a joy that remains even in the midst of fatigue because it is born of inner peace, not results. Humility is not resignation, it is silent strength. Whoever possesses it can do anything with dignity. They can wash a floor as if caressing the earth, mend a garment as if sewing the mantle of the universe, cook a soup as if feeding the world. Nothing is too small for one who has understood that everything can be a vehicle of the Spirit. So do not wait for grand stages or glorious tasks. Do not postpone your dedication waiting for a higher role. Elevate the role you already have with the light of your consciousness. Honor what you do, no matter how small it is. And if you cannot change your work, change your spirit, because the soul that serves with love turns every place into a sanctuary and every task into a prayer. And when you finally look back, you will discover that those days when you folded clothes, cleaned a table, or swept a corner unnoticed were the days your soul grew the most. Because in each one of them, you were given the opportunity to act without expectation, to love without asking, to give without measuring, and that is the essence of the eternal. Thus, the soul that serves in the simple and does so with love, joy, and humility has attained a dignity no earthly throne can grant, because that throne, unseen and untouchable, is the eternal throne of the awakened spirit. Chapter 9. Money and the dignity of work. A fair reward is not greed but a reflection of balance. There is a constant restlessness in the human heart born from the desire for security, recognition, and well-being. This restlessness, when not enlightened by wisdom, transforms into greed. But when guided by the deep understanding of the soul, it becomes balance. There is a sacred relationship between work and money, and when this relationship is governed by a just spirit, money ceases to be a master and becomes a silent servant of the universal order. Work is dignity, money is the consequence. What is earned through honest effort and sincere dedication reflects the balance between giving and receiving, serving and being served, sowing and harvesting. In its purest form, money is solidified energy, a visible manifestation of the exchange of value among people. It should not be seen as an end, but as a result, not as a goal, but as a measure. There are those who have fallen into the error of despising money, believing that every spiritual aspiration must detach from the material. and there are others who have glorified money as the only proof of success. Both are lost. The wise soul neither rejects it with pride nor worships it with greed. It places it in its proper place, that of an instrument, not a purpose. When a person works with integrity, consistency, and love, the universe responds. It may not respond immediately, but the law is infallible. True sowing brings true harvest. A fair reward does not always come in the form of gold, but it does come in the form of peace, opportunity, well-being, and sufficient provision. And when the soul has learned to work without anxiety, greed, or covetousness, money arrives without enslaving. Greed corrupts the work. Whoever works solely for money loses the joy of doing. Their mind sinks into anxiety over results, and their heart grows sick with comparison, envy, and dissatisfaction. Work ceases to be a temple and becomes a marketplace. The soul, instead of expanding, contracts, and though it may earn more, its inner misery increases. On the contrary, whoever works as an act of dedication, as a form of service and inner expression, finds in money a just and harmonious manifestation of their energy. They receive without attachment and give without fear. Use money as you would a hammer or a pen, to build, to create, to uplift. Do not worship it, but respect it. Do not fear it, but manage it wisely. It is not unworthy to receive payment for work done with the soul. It is unworthy to demand it without having sown, or to withhold it when others deserve it. Clean money dignifies not because it confers status, but because it represents the natural recognition of work done with integrity. Its absence sometimes teaches humility. Its presence, well understood, allows expansion and generosity. The noble soul does not measure its worth by earnings, but by the faithfulness of its actions. Yet it also knows that denying the value of money in the material world would be denying a part of life's balance. Because where there is justice, there is also fair compensation. And whoever learns to receive without pride and give without fear has already transcended the illusory power of gold. Many workers despise themselves because their labor is poorly paid. But the soul that has learned to look beyond numbers understands that work is valuable not for what it pays, but for what it builds in character. However, it also knows that when working with excellence and perseverance, it is fair to aspire to compensation that reflects the value provided. Here lies a crucial point. Money should not be chased but attracted, not like a hunted animal but like a breeze that comes when windows are open. And those windows are well-done work, an attitude of service, inner order, and clarity of intention. The nobler the cause, the purer the reward. The purer the desire, the more balanced the result. It is not virtuous to live in scarcity out of fear of money, nor is it virtuous to hoard out of fear of scarcity. Virtue lies in balance, in knowing you can live with little without bitterness, and with much without pride, that you can receive with gratitude and give with joy, that you can earn without competing and prosper without harming. This is true spiritual mastery over money. The noble worker does not ask how much they will earn, but how faithful they have been in their task. They know their character is worth more than any coin, and that the soul that works with dignity is never forsaken. Their pockets may not always be full, but their heart will be. And that inner wealth, which cannot be stolen or lost, is more valuable than all the fortunes on earth. Money in clean hands becomes a bridge, in dirty hands a chain. The wise use it to sow, to help, to sustain. The foolish accumulate it aimlessly and end up enslaved by it. Therefore, money does not change people. It only reveals what was already in their hearts. Those who have cultivated inner order will always know what to do with what they receive. So honor your work. Do not do it for gold, but receive gold as fair recognition. Let it not be your goal, but your reflection. And when you have it, use it as you use light, to illuminate, not to blind. Because money that comes through clean means and is used with elevated intention is a silent blessing accompanying the soul on its path. And in the end, when you look back on your life, you will not remember how much you earned, but how much peace you felt while working, how much love you put into your acts, and how much freedom you gained by not being a slave to gold, but an architect of your destiny. Chapter 10. The Worker and the Work of the World. How every individual action sustains the balance of the whole. Nothing in this world exists in isolation. No blade of grass grows by itself. No star shines without relation to the others. No drop of rain falls without touching the earth that awaits it. Likewise, man in his daily work, in his small and constant effort, participates in a great invisible work that transcends him. His action, however humble it may seem, is a living part of the balance of the whole. The worker, with his daily task, not only shapes his own life, but also silently contributes to the harmony of the world. The illusion of separation has led many to believe that their actions are irrelevant, that their work is dispensable, that their effort carries no weight. But everything a person does, thinks, and decides resonates beyond their body, beyond their immediate surroundings. There is an invisible web, a fabric of cause and effect that connects all things, and every human gesture, no matter how small, echoes within that web. The world, as we know it, stands firm because of the sum of millions of anonymous efforts. The light that turns on at dusk, the bread on the table, the clothing that warms the body, the street on which one walks, all exist thanks to hands that have worked silently, to wills that have fulfilled their role without expecting glory. Every cog supports the entire mechanism. The worker who performs his duty with dignity, even if no one applauds, is sustaining a part of the order, and this order, respected by many, generates civilization. Chaos does not arise from great catastrophes, but from the sum of irresponsible acts. Similarly, harmony does not emerge only from heroic actions, but from the accumulation of well-done tasks, well-spoken words, well-directed thoughts. There is greatness in those who understand this, because they stop underestimating their role and begin to live their work as a sacred contribution to the whole. They no longer work only for themselves or merely out of necessity. They work as part of a broader purpose, as servants of the universal balance. And then their effort takes on a different light. It is no longer a race, it is a mission. It is no longer routine, it is an elevated responsibility. Imagine a symphony. Each instrument must play at its moment with its own voice, neither before nor after. If one instrument is out of tune, if one plays ahead of time, the whole loses its harmony. The world is the same. Every life is an instrument. Every trade is a note. Every just act is part of the total music. The worker who fine-tunes his task is fine-tuning the whole. As man becomes aware of this truth, his being transforms. He no longer seeks to compete, but to collaborate. He no longer despises small tasks, because he knows the whole depends on them. He no longer feels alone because he understands he is part of a greater work, a cosmic work where everything is connected. When a man respectfully picks up a piece of paper from the ground, when he leaves his workplace clean, when he greets sincerely, when he keeps his word, he strengthens the invisible structure of social harmony. And when another lies, neglects, betrays, or despises what he does, he weakens that same fabric. Thus, day by day, the world is built or crumbles by the choices of individuals. It is easy to think that changes come only from above, from visible positions, from well-known names. But history has shown again and again that nations are sustained by the awareness of the worker, the kindness of the citizen, the discipline of the servant. The spirit of a nation is cultivated in the workshop, in the field, in the classroom, in the home. Every individual action repeated over days creates the culture of a people. Therefore, the worker must never despise his trade, nor think his effort lacks value. His task is a stone in the building of the world, and if that stone is placed firmly, precisely, and lovingly, it securely supports the others. But if placed carelessly, it weakens the entire structure. I've seen men work as if the world depended on their action, even when their role was to sweep a street or weld a beam. And truly, their attitude sustained a part of the world. Because when one works with such dedication, with such sense of purpose, life is infused into what he does. And that invisible but real life nourishes the whole. Selfishness, on the other hand, breaks the bonds. The one who works only for himself, only to accumulate or to stand out, acts like someone who pulls his instrument out of the orchestra and tries to play alone. He may make noise, but he does not make music, and that noise, if repeated, disrupts the whole harmony. That is why the consciousness of the worker must not be small, it must be vast. It must encompass the total effect of his personal cause. When one understands that every act has consequences, when one feels that what he does impacts the general balance, then the soul ennobles. One no longer works out of impulse, obligation, or fear, but out of conviction, and that conviction is what turns simple work into a vocation. Every just action, every well-done work, is a stone placed on the bridge that connects the individual with the universal. Every fault, every omission, every neglect is a crack in that same bridge. Therefore, greatness is not in the place where one works, but in how one works. It is not in the size of the role, but in the depth with which it is embodied. Thus, the worker who performs his labor with love, order, and meaning is participating in the work of the world. Even if his name does not appear in the books, his energy is inscribed in the invisible fabric that sustains life. And that inscription does not disappear. It is living memory. It is history sealed. When the soul reaches this understanding, it no longer needs immediate reward. It knows its work has been useful to the whole. It knows it has fulfilled its part, and that certainty is richer than any salary, stronger than any praise. It is the peace of the just, the dignity of the wise, the certainty of one who has understood his place in the universal order. And so when the worker puts away his tools, he does not say, "Today I worked for bread," but "Today I sustained a part of the world." And his rest is deep, because his labor has been true. Chapter 11. Work as a path of silence and light. Noble action replaces the vain noise of speeches. In this world filled with voices, speeches, and clamors, true value hides like gold beneath the rock, in the silence of the one who acts without speaking. Men fill their days with words, promises, and unfulfilled intentions, while life as a whole moves not by what is said, but by what is truly done. In the realm of the spirit, words have power only when backed by action. Everything else is wind. The noble worker knows this. He does not need to announce his virtue, display his achievements, or proclaim his dedication. He simply does what must be done, and by doing so with truth, purity of soul, and clear purpose, he turns his task into a silent flame that shines brighter than 1,000 noisy lamps. Because in a world that applauds spectacle, dignity still belongs to those who work without boastfulness. Noble action needs no noise. It arises from the depths, is carried out discreetly, and remains like a fertile seed long after the moment has passed. The worker who acts consciously, who respects his task and fulfills it with purity, even if no one watches, is speaking to the world in a higher language, the language of deeds imbued with light. There is wisdom in those who are silent and work. Their silence is not emptiness, but inner fullness. Their work is not a burden, but a form of revelation. While others debate how to change the world, he dedicates himself to putting in order what is within his reach. While others proclaim ideals, he embodies them in the precision of his gestures, the honesty of his dealings, the neatness of his work. Because in the end, what remains are not words, but deeds. Words may impress for a moment, but if not rooted in a righteous life, they dissolve like fog in the sun. Noble work, on the other hand, endures, bears fruit, inspires. It is the silent testimony of an awakened conscience. Work as a spiritual path is not announced. It is lived. It is not debated. It is practiced. It is not imposed. It radiates. Just as the flower does not speak, yet perfumes the air, so too does the noble worker, by doing his task well, transform his surroundings without proclaiming his virtue. There is a light that can only arise from pure doing. It is not the light of a lamp or a fire. It is an inner clarity that illuminates the gaze, gives firmness to the step, and makes others trust without knowing why. That light does not come from eloquence, but from coherence. It does not come from acquired knowledge, but from duty fulfilled. Many believe it necessary to teach with words, correct with speeches, guide with orders. But truly great men teach by example. Those who see an upright soul working silently feel the urge to be better. Without sermons, without reproaches, without showiness, it is action that corrects, example that educates. Therefore, noble work not only builds objects or services, it builds atmospheres. Wherever a soul works with dedication and care, order, respect, and serenity are breathed. It is as if the invisible is filled with presence, as if the work itself speaks softly, saying, "Here love was put into the labor." Those who seek to transform their surroundings must first act before speaking, offer before demanding, serve before convincing. Because when one acts from clarity and love, their very presence becomes an argument. Their doing turns into light. Their silence speaks with a strength no word can match. I have observed men whose quiet example transformed more than entire treatises. Their work was simple but full of intention. Their day was not grand, but full of meaning, and their life without speeches was a living lesson. Such men are not seen every day, but those who encounter them have the privilege of sharing their path. The true worker of light does not need to be seen. He knows his labor is not lost, even if unrecognized, because in the deep order of the universe, every noble action feeds the invisible network of good. Every just gesture strengthens the threads that uphold the harmony of the world. Even if no one applauds, even if no one understands, his work has not been in vain. When one works with this awareness, the noise of the world no longer disturbs. It becomes distant, like the murmur of a river while meditating under a tree. The mind no longer needs to defend or impose itself. It quiets, focuses, surrenders. And it is in that noiseless surrender that the soul finds its true strength. Because he who works thus does not seek to rise above others, but to elevate his inner being. He does not seek to shine, but to serve as a silent channel of universal order. And that channel, without noise, without shadow, without desire to stand out, becomes a clear path through which light flows. Thus, while the world entertains itself with speeches, comparisons, and vain struggles for recognition, the silent worker continues building, stone upon stone, task after task, neither hurried nor paused. And his work, woven with invisible threads, shines from within like a lamp lit behind the veil. And when time has passed, when the noise has faded and words have been forgotten, what remains is what was done with love, order, and truth, the trace of the one who worked in silence, and that trace will be light for those who come after. Chapter 12. Just effort as prayer in motion. A life rightly lived is a prayer without words. There are prayers not spoken with lips, not recited before altars, nor repeated aloud like mantras. They are prayers made with the hands, the feet, the eyes, the whole body bowed to the task. Prayers that do not rise in supplication, but are embodied in the silent effort of a righteous life, sustained day after day with discipline, attention, and purpose. Because just action done with a clean conscience is living prayer, embodied prayer, prayer in motion. It is not necessary to close your eyes to pray if the soul remains open. It is not necessary to bend the knees if the heart has already bowed humbly to duty. And there is no need to search for the right words if the worker, in their silent dedication, consecrates their day as an invisible offering to the divine order. The world is full of voices crying to the heavens, while their deeds deny what their lips declare. But true prayer needs no adornments nor witnesses. It manifests in just conduct, in harmonious action, in faithfulness to the simplest duty. The one who sweeps the street with devotion, the one who carves wood with care, the one who tends the sick with tenderness, they are praying with their body, they are worshipping with their will. The whole life, when lived with righteousness, becomes a temple where every act is sacred. Haste dissolves, complaints vanish, inner noise quiets, and the soul, fully immersed in its task, discovers a peace that needs no explanation. That peace is not a reward, it is presence. It is the sign that the higher has joined the lower, that the eternal has descended into the moment, that the divine expresses itself in the human through conscious work. Prayer is not asking but aligning, not changing heaven's will but tuning into it. And there is no better way to do this than fulfilling with love and perseverance the duty life places before us. Because that duty, however small it may seem, is the fragment of the universe entrusted to us to put in order. Just effort is that which does not rely on desire for the outcome, but on the purity of intention. Effort without greed, without haste, without vanity. Effort measured not by what is gained, but by what is offered. And when this effort is repeated each day with humility, with serene joy, the whole life rises to the height of a silent prayer. I have seen men of few words, ignorant of sacred books, yet whose conduct radiated a light that could not be contained. They were just in small things, patient in difficulty, grateful in the everyday. They spoke not of spirituality, but lived immersed in it. They were prayer without language. Their day was their prayer, their work, their liturgy, their silence, their altar. For the soul that works in order and truth needs no kneeling in search of answers, because every right act is already communion with the eternal. When one works this way, with awakened conscience and quiet heart, there is no need to climb mountains or search for new words. God is in the well-done gesture, in the duty fulfilled well, in fatigue accepted with dignity. Many seek peace in retreat, but do not find it because they have yet to learn how to work in silence. Others yearn for wisdom but despise discipline, not knowing that one who fulfills their labor with care is already on the path to the highest knowledge. Because wisdom is not received, it is earned and earned through the purity of daily doing. The prayer that transforms is not the one heard in assemblies, but the one lived when no one watches, the one manifested in the justice with which a decision is weighed, in the patience with which a child is taught, in the respect with which a stranger is treated, in the sweetness with which adversity is faced. There, in the simplest things, dialogue with the eternal takes place. When a person understands this, life is no longer divided between the spiritual and the mundane. There is no longer time for the sacred and time for the profane. All is one, all is sacred. Work becomes ritual, the day liturgy, even the breath a hymn of praise. And then it is no longer necessary to seek special moments to connect with the high, because every moment becomes a bridge, every tool a symbol, every action a prayer without words, and the soul, living thus, enters the deep silence where the divine dwells. So do not seek outside for the perfect language. Do not wait for others to teach you the correct way to pray. Look at your hands, your surroundings, your task. Ask yourself if you do what you do with love, with attention, with faithfulness. Because if so, you are praying. You are fulfilling the highest form of communion, that of one who transforms their life into a silent song of light. And that song is not heard with ears. It is perceived in the order you create, in the peace you radiate, in the beauty you bring forth. And when night falls and you close your eyes, you will need not speak a word. Your day will have been your prayer, your labor, your offering, your life, your prayer.